All right, so we'll have a few more people join, I think, as the time goes on, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So my name is Daphne Dixon, and I run Live Green in Connecticut, Southwestern area, Clean Cities. So we're going to spend a few minutes today talking about an electric school bus toolkit that we are putting together to help people learn how they can help their towns get electric buses. So this is one way to do this. There's many ways to get electric school buses, but this is one way to do it. All right. So Live Green. So our mission, if you don't already know, is to integrate the 17 Global Sustainable Development Goals into corporations and communities through metric-driven programs. Our organization's been around, and we want to mute our lines. Our organization's been around for a while, since around 2008, and we did a lot of events and a lot of gatherings over the years. And then in the last year, hi Patrice, and then in the last year or so, we've really developed an interest in doing more programs and trying to actually work with more communities to really get projects done. And Clean Cities is one of our major programs. And Clean Cities is a program that comes out of the Department of Energy's Vehicle Technologies Office. We are one of 85 coalitions from around the country. And really what we do as Clean Cities coordinators is we really work with businesses and municipalities and any kind of fleet who is interested in transitioning to electric vehicles. So we are a resource for people to use in their transition. And what we're really excited about is electric school buses. So that's what we're here to talk to you all about today. And what we're really looking for is we're really looking for people. We're really looking for people who want to be the champion in their town for electric school buses, and for people who want to take the lead and figure out how to do this. So we need superheroes. We need a team of superheroes to do this, because this is not necessarily an easy thing to do, and it takes a team of people to really get these electric school buses going in our towns. So again, we're really looking for people who want to not just learn about electric school buses or hear about it, but we're looking for people who say, sign me up. I want to talk with a group every single week to help support me, to help support my town, learn how to do this. So this is an active, collaborative group of people that we're looking to support, people who really want to take action, who really want to make things happen, who really want to get these electric school buses into their towns. So just a brief overview, as I understand it, there's really these sort of 5 main things when it comes to electric school buses in getting them into your town. There's outreach and education. There's building a team. There's the procurement process. There is new technology, and there's the economics of this. Okay. All right. So in Fairfield, how it really started in Fairfield was that our task force put together an event, a Green Wheels Expo, which was a National Drive Electric event. And our task force put this event together. We've been doing it for years. And we had the electric school bus from White Plains come to our event. And at that event, we had invited PTA and school board members, and we had the good fortune of having basically the fleet manager of the school buses come to the event. And he stepped onto that electric school bus with his kids, and he was bitten by the electric school bus bug. And after that, he was pretty much sold. It was from that experience experience of getting on that bus that really changed his perspective. Okay, and then on the other end of that, another event we did, which really helped to lead all of this forward, was we had a regional conference on sustainable development, EB deployment event. And I think somebody's listening to some TV in the background, so if you could mute your line or turn that down, that'd be awesome. Thank you. So another thing that happened, which was really important to move things along, was we had this conference in Fairfield, and at this conference we had a panel, an electric school bus panel, and we had the gentleman from White Plains who talk about the electric school bus project that they had at White Plains and how it worked, and all the technology that they used. And so after that panel, there was a lunch break, and at that lunch break there was a conversation between a few people, including the utilities. And basically the conversation was, you know, if they're doing this in White Plains, how can we do this in Fairfield? And so it was out of that conversation at this event that led to a series of meetings, which has led to the formation of a project for electric school buses in Fairfield that involves battery storage and a solar carport. And we're working on that project now and applying for a grant. So it all started because we had a team, we had a task force that put together this that had a task force that put together the Green Wheels Expo, and then that led to interest in going forward with electric school buses. And then we had this conference that led to more people getting involved in a larger project that involved battery storage and solar carports and all of that. And then that's leading to this grant that we're writing. So I would encourage you, if any, I'm not sure how many people are on the call are really interested in leading the charge, but if you are leading the charge, the first thing you need to do is you need to raise your hand and say, I am all in and I want to see electric school buses in my town and I want to be a leader in my town. And if that's you, then, you know, like your next step is, there's a lot of things that go on in parallel, but one of the things you want to start doing is you want to start identifying these different people in your town. Who is the fleet manager? Who is the decision maker? You know, do you have a relationship with your PTA, with your school board? Are you working with your public works director? You know, because you're going to want to involve those people as well. All of the people listed on this, these are all people that you're going to want to have part of your team, your electric school bus team. Okay, let's see. Just trying to move forward here. And it seems like my slide might be a little stuck. Oh, there we go. All right. So the procurement process, this is something you may or may not know, but something I think is important to understand. So in Fairfield and in a lot of towns, the towns don't own the buses. I think most of us have service providers. So the way the process works is that the fleet manager for the school buses, they write the RFP. They write an RFP that includes a lot of different things. That RFP goes out, and then a service provider, you know, they bid on it, and a service provider is chosen. Now the service provider has a couple of things that they also have to do. They have to they're the ones that they buy the buses. They buy the buses and they buy it from the school bus manufacturers. And they also typically in these RFPs are responsible for figuring out what the infrastructure is going to be. So it gets a little complicated. So I just want to go over these different parts. So in the RFP, so with Fairfield example, these are the kinds of things that go in an RFP, including the cost. You know, that's a very important part of it. But these are the parts of the RFP. And then these are the service providers. I think you're all pretty familiar with these service providers. And then of course there's 4 or so bus manufacturers. And then there's charging infrastructure. And there's a lot of different types of charging infrastructure you can get when you're doing these electric school bus projects. What I want to emphasize more than anything is every project is different. Every town is different. Every location, every bus depot is different. Like, for example, Greenwich and Stamford, I've learned through Alex, they share a bus depot. You know, the bus depot in Fairfield doesn't have a lot of big buildings around it. Like every town is different. And so if you're the electric school bus champion in your town, one of the things you want to do is you actually want to go and look at your bus depot. Where are these buses? Where are they housed? So in an ideal RFP process, so we've talked about these specifications. These are the different things that would go in an RFP. The other thing that's really important to know is the grant requirements. There's a lot of different kinds of grants. We all know about the VW grants, or most of us know about the VW grants. There's also Diesel Emission Reduction Act grants, and there's Connecticut DERA grants, and there's also Department of Energy grants. The grant that we're going for in Fairfield actually is a Department of Energy grant. The VW grants, it's important to know that one of the stipulations of the VW grants is that when you apply, if you apply for a VW grant, you cannot have done an RFP. So you have to apply if you want VW funding, and those funding opportunities are going to come up probably starting in June. You can't have already done an RFP. If you have done an RFP process, you're not going to be eligible for VW grants. There's other grants, but so every grant is different. So knowing grant requirements is really important. The other thing that's really important, and this goes back to your team, you need to be building this team, is at some point you'll want to talk with your utilities and find out like what kind of charging infrastructure are they interested in? What kinds of, and it goes also back to the site. Where is the site and what are some opportunities? And your public works director. You'll need to work together with your public works director because you need to find out what kinds of projects does the public works director have experience with, how much interest does your public works person have, what kind of interest does he or she have in doing some sort of charging infrastructure that would help the town. And these are questions you cannot answer on your own. These are questions that you really have to get in dialogue and conversations with your team members. And a lot of times too, you want to involve conversations between public works directors and utilities because again, all of these projects are site dependent and they all have their own, every town has its own idiosyncrasies. So the service provider. So we have the school, they do the RFP. The RFP goes out to the service provider. So let's talk for a moment about these service providers. So these are First Student and DADCO. So, and many, many others. So they're in the business of providing bus services for schools. They have certain cost models. They have to, when they accept these contracts with the schools, they have to make sure that they're going to make some money because they're a business and that's what they need to do. So they have their standard their standard operating procedures that they have used for years with the diesel buses. So what's new about these electric school buses is that they're still learning on the full picture of the economics. So a lot of these contracts that the schools have with the service providers, a lot of them are 5-year contracts. Some of them are 5-year contracts with a option to renew for another 5 years, but a lot of them are 5-year contracts. And one of the issues is that with electric school buses, you don't really start to see the savings. You really have to look at like a 10-year stretch of time because a lot of the savings you get is because of the maintenance costs. And to really see that return, you need like a 10-year time frame. So these service providers are trying to figure out the economics of how to make this work. The other thing is electric school buses are pretty new, and there's not a lot of them. There might be some, but there's not a lot of them that have been around for 10, 12 years. And so the service providers are kind of trying to figure all of this out. The service providers are also responsible, typically in these contracts, to figure out the charging infrastructure that's going to go with these school buses. And if they're not given input from other people, they're probably going to just do a charging infrastructure that's going to be simple for them. They're not necessarily going to suggest these broader projects that have to do with battery storage or vehicle to grid or things like that. They're probably going to do something more simple. And then there's the school bus manufacturers. So one of the things that we are working on, and one of the things that the school bus manufacturers are trying to do, is they're trying to make sure, they're trying to educate the service providers on what the real cost savings are on these electric school buses. And we're trying to facilitate more and more conversations between service providers and the school bus manufacturers so that they can sort of come to terms on the cost savings that the electric school buses really do provide. Okay, so another thing, if you want to get, as we've talked about a little bit, one of the things you really want to start learning about is when you're doing these projects, you want to bring an electric school bus to your town, you want to bring electric school buses into your town, you need charging infrastructure. And then we talked a little bit about, how can you make this a really interesting project? And one of the reasons you want to make it an interesting project is because if you're looking for grants, which we all need to get these school buses, one of the things that to be a successful grant is they like interesting projects. And so there's a lot of people that just want electric school buses and to plug them in. But if you want to sort of stand out, you want to have a project that has other components to it. Battery storage, load management, managed charging, all these different kinds of things. And again, these new technologies, these types of projects, you really need to develop that team. You need to have several meetings and figure out what's the best project for your town, what's the best technology for your town, and how can the utilities, what's the best, what's going to help them, and the better it is for the utilities, the more they will potentially support something like this. So with the economics, so these buses, so diesel buses, I'm going to use very round numbers, but let's say diesel bus is $100,000 and electric school bus is over $300,000. With the maintenance cost savings, you're going to be able to save about $150,000 with maintenance because of the electric school buses. They have less parts, the fuel, all of these things, but there's still about $100,000 difference between getting diesel and getting electric, even with the maintenance. And so this is why you need the grants, because there's still that chunk that has to, we have to get through. Now, I think Matt was on the phone. I think he's joined us from Connecticut Green Bank, and I think that they might be trying to figure out some financing options. I don't think that there's anything in ink yet, but potentially, and I don't want to speak for Matt, but there may potentially be ways to help finance that extra $100,000 if grants are not available. So some key points. If you want to get electric school buses in your town, you need to build a team. You need to know how to communicate your message, which means you need to understand that there's all these different parts to electric school buses. There's the procurement, there's the service providers, there's the infrastructure, there's looking at your site, like what's really available. There's this new technology. There's working with your public works director. There's, bringing in the utilities. So there's this whole thing, and knowing enough where you can at least have an opening conversation with all of those people. Not that you have to have all the answers. Nobody has the answers. I can't emphasize enough that nobody has all the answers. Everybody's figuring this out together. But just, it's important just to know where the moving parts are, to be aware that these school buses, with grants, they are doable, but there is this extra, disparity in cost, and you do have to figure out how you're going to pay for them. And then, one exciting thing, well, there's a lot of exciting things, but something I find particularly exciting is I was speaking with a few folks regarding DERA grants, the Diesel Emission Reduction Act grants. And these are national grants, and they're very large grants. And some advice I was given, and what I was told, was that DERA they like big projects with regional collaboration. So, one of the things I think might be really interesting is to figure out a way to find several towns that are interested in getting a couple of electric school buses, and then potentially talking with a school bus manufacturer and seeing how we could work out some kind of project where we involve many towns. So again, Live Green and Clean Cities is really interested in projects, moving things forward, getting buses, getting grants, and making these projects work. So we're really interested in talking to people who want to lead an electric school bus kind of challenge in their town, and see if we can, either work together regionally, or, also work, if you want to just work on your own, that's fine too. But we're really here to help support that. This is a great example, and I know Alex had a lot to do with this, I believe. So here's a wonderful example of Middletown. They got a bus due to the efforts of Connecticut League of Conservation voters. They were awarded that extra money, which was enabled them to buy the bus. So yay! So Connecticut's on the map for electric school buses. So that's really wonderful. And so what our commitment to you all here on the phone, and our promise to you, is that we are delighted to have a weekly 1-hour session to, starting next week, to talk with those folks that want to be school bus champions in their town, and to, start where you are. So what can you do first? Most of you are part of a task force, so you kind of already have that team. You'd want to identify other team leaders that you would want. Are you working with your public works director? Do you know who the fleet director is? All these kinds of things. Start looking at who your team is. And then next week we can start, going to the next steps. Some of the other things that we're doing also to help support you is we will be doing a electric school bus conference. It was originally scheduled to be a together event April 22nd at the Discovery Museum, but of course things have changed, so now it will be a virtual event, and it looks like, according to the feedback we've received, that it will be in June. So we will invite you to come to that to get more resources. We'll have some subject matter experts at that should be helpful. We also had a site visit planned to White Plains to look at those school buses and their charging infrastructure. That was scheduled for March 11th, which unfortunately got canceled, postponed, and we're working on ways to either do a virtual one or figure something out where we can share that technology with you. So those are some of the outreach events that we're looking to do. If you're not in a position to do your own outreach events, and or you just want to take advantage of ones that are already being planned, that would be great. And you can invite some of your team members to come to these events. I know that with the site visit, we had a couple of towns, I believe it was Greenwich and West End, that we're going to bring some decision makers to come to these things and learn what they could do. So that's what we're doing. So that is sort of our overview of our electric school bus toolkit. We have much more to share in the coming weeks, but this was really just an overview to let you know, what our commitment is, some of the key elements for you to move forward in your own towns on how you can do this and some key steps you can start taking to start doing this. So it is exactly 3:30. So I guess if there's I will start. Okay. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. So I don't know if there's if there's any questions that people have, or if not, we can send everybody an invitation who's interested in coming to a follow-up meeting. But I guess if you have a few minutes, I guess I would like to hear from those who are interested in becoming an electric school bus champion in their town. Is there anybody who's ready to take on that charge?
Daphne, my Clean Energy Committee has a few people on it that's a subcommittee that wants to do this. And we're going to meet with the superintendent of schools, but because of the virus, we haven't. They asked me if I could send them a copy of your talk, which was great. Can I do that? And I will send it also to my first selectman to get them on board so we can start talking about what you brought up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe Kelsey, do we have all the emails from this?
Yeah, so I think we have everyone's email, so we can send the presentation out to everybody after this.
Yeah.
Oh, terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No problem.
You're welcome.
That will be helpful for me too.
Awesome.
I'm very interested in leading the charge. And
yay! That's awesome. Awesome.
I'm on the school board, so
Terrific.
I think
Great.
you're also interested. So
Yay!
and Ashford buys their own buses,
Terrific.
so
Terrific.
it should be an easier proposition.
Yes. Yay! So we've got 2. So who else is going to lead the charge in their town? Mark?
Hey, Marianne, it's John Boyano here.
Hi.
Hey,
John?
Mary and I are in the same town, and I'm glad you want to step up on it because, as you know how busy I am, I don't really have the bandwidth to lead the charge, but I could definitely support it.
You can be on our team.
I could be on the team. I've been in the renewable energy solar space for about 6 or 7 years, and I study quite a bit of electric buses and charge stations and a lot of supportive renewable ways to bring into communities. So this kind of fits into that. And also I think it was Kelsey I just emailed. Yeah. I also have some friends that have been looking into retrofitting vehicles with electric components, which is a lot less money than buying brand new. So that's an option that we could also look at.
Awesome. That's terrific. Okay.
Hey Daphne, it's Mark. Count me on in Simsbury. Simsbury Simsbury owns the buses, and our competition there is actually not diesel; it's propane. They're in the process of converting to propane, so that will pose some challenges. But
is it the whole fleet there that they converted to propane, or just part?
They haven't yet, but they will.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get some electric ones in before they get too far.
Good.
What is the relationship between First Student, DATCO, and the provider of the bus, the manufacturer of the bus?
So DATCO is a service provider. So they purchase buses from like a Lion or Bluebird or Thomas.
This is Peter. Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm interested in doing this, but I probably would try to put together a team and
yay,
make somebody else the leader.
Okay.
Yes.
But one thing too is that we're going to have a meeting of Eastern Connecticut Green Action on Saturday virtually, and I assume that I'm free to put this out and get other people from other.
Yeah, absolutely. We want the whole state with these buses. We want the whole state to have these buses.
Okay, great. Well done.
Awesome. Thank you.
Daphne, this is CJ from Waterbury.
Hi, CJ.
Just wondering if you've heard from any towns in my area. There's a fairly strong Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, and your suggestion that we look at a regional team might be some way that Waterbury can team up with the surrounding towns and achieve what you're talking about, not by going small, but by actually going big. Have you heard of other towns nearby?
No, I mean, this is our first call to do something like this. And so we send it out to the people we send it out to. So if there's other contacts that we should have, we're happy to reach out to those other people, or if you want to send it.
Sure,
But,
I'll try to connect you with the
I don't know also
council.
if there, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah, we could work through the COG, I think, right?
Peter again. Cyril, you know, I was in line at the Legislative Office building, it seems like years ago, but it was just a couple of months ago, for our energy and technology hearing. And I was talking to a guy named David Kraszewski, who's the Policy and Economic Development Director for the Waterbury Regional Chamber of Commerce. He seemed pretty interested in clean energy stuff. And I don't know whether somehow we should be able to get in touch with each other. I'd be glad to share his contact information with you, or maybe you can find it on your own.
Thank you. Peter Millman, I'm Waterbury Recycling. How can I get a hold of you? Or we can do this in the chat. You can send me your email if you
Sure,
wish.
I'll send it in chat.
Thank you.
Awesome. Okay.
So Pam Roach, I know you brought it up at SCROG meetings. What do you think the chances are to have SCROG get that group of towns together to do a single proposal? You think that's too?
Well, I would like to, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like to see if we can get some other towns interested other than Brantford to submit a regional bid. I don't know if someone, you know, the likes of Hamden maybe is the first one that comes to mind. So absolutely, you know, when we see this bid come out from the state, I was planning to put a really good push into all the towns to say, okay, you know, let's get a few of us on board here.
Okay.
You know?
And Daphne.
Let me just comment quickly on what Pam said. So there's electric school buses, and then I know that we've Pam and I have talked, and I've been to their lovely offices there, and we've talked about doing regional grants for municipal fleets. So school buses are, you know, we're here for school buses today, but working with SCROG and others, there's also opportunities for municipal fleets.
Right. Now, if one's going to work with another town, do you both have to have the same, like we have first student, Hampton has first student, other towns have somebody else, or they own their, should it be towns that all work with first student that I get involved in, or doesn't it matter?
Well, so that's like one of those things that would be worked out. So what the first step, so it's a good question, it's an excellent question. So the first step would be to identify towns that would want to work together. So we'd want to identify towns that would want to work together. Then we talk with one of the bus manufacturers that wants to be a part of a regional grant. And we start talking about that. And then it depends which kind of grant we're going to go for. But at some point, it probably does make sense for it to be the same provider, but I don't know if it has to be.
Okay. Because I've talked to first student, and they're pretty clueless about it all.
So first student, so that can be true. So that's your experience, and yes. And the good news also is that first student is national. Like a lot of these companies are national. So maybe the people in Connecticut aren't familiar with it, but they've got electric school buses in California, and they've got electric school buses all over the place. There's a lot of electric school buses in other parts of the country that these service providers are managing. So they might not have local experience, but they do have that. There are some service providers that are just local, but most of them are national. And if we get high enough up, they do have that experience. They just have to share it with the Connecticut folks. But you're right. Yeah. So who else is gonna?
Daphne, this is Guy. I'm interested in getting the ball rolling. I probably would not lead the effort, but our energy committee has been looking to take on some new projects and interests. So this is going to be very timely for the next time we meet in person.
Awesome. 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 So that's great. So what we would like to do is we would like to put together what we would think would be some next steps. So for everybody who's interested in taking that next step and either being the champion or finding the champion or being part of the team, we'll, in the next few days, we will send you out, kind of like what that next step would look like, so that not that you have to do the whole thing or not that you have to do anything perfect, but just some guidelines to get you started so you can start getting some momentum, so that when we talk next week, everybody will have a little something that they potentially could share, have some momentum going, maybe have some new questions that they didn't have before, maybe bring some more members of their team together, so we can kind of start forming this sort of container of us all working on this together. Because one thing I know for sure, if a group of smart, committed, passionate people focus on one thing, there's one thing that's going to happen, and that's they're going to reach that goal. So I know the more of us we have that are focused on that goal, I know that we can get there. I know we can get there together. So is there anybody else who has a question or who wants to share that they're really interested in their town being a part of something like this?
One small question, I think this may be something other folks have covered. Waterbury's presently applying to join Sustainable CT, as most municipalities throughout the state have. We're trying to play catch up on it. And could anybody talk about what electric buses could mean in terms of earning points towards Sustainable CT status?
That's an excellent question. And I've reached out to Sustainable CT a few times. I haven't heard back from them yet, but we would really like to partner, or that might not be the right word, but I really think that I think these efforts, even leading up to the electric school buses, should somehow garner points for Sustainable CT. So I'm not quite, I know Lynn, but I'm not sure what the process is to, because I haven't heard back from them yet when I've contacted them a while ago to see if they would want to, if they were interested in Clean Cities helping to support points and the certification process, and I just didn't get any traction. So if you or anybody could help me with that, suggested, hey, we want to do this thing, and maybe there's a way that a lot of towns could start working on points. If you could help us with that, I would really appreciate it.
Well, I will try. There's a Sustainable CT kind of coffee clutch that's formed now via Zoom, and she's been doing it. Linda's been doing it almost every week. And so it's just very casual, and I can simply just raise the point, says, hey, what about that with electric buses, and how could that affect a town earning points going forward? And even if they don't have a definitive answer right now, that would get that in their brains, so they start to think, oh, it would probably be 5 points or 10 points, or would go under such and such a line item.
Right. Well, and so what, one of the things we were thinking about is, so we have this toolkit. So today was just an kind of like an outline of it. So we're just brainstorming here. But so what if, for example, let's say there's this toolkit that shows towns how to do the school bus. What if a town went through the toolkit and they learned how to do it? Like, how many points would that be? Could that be worth points if they went through a training? I don't know. That might not be a good idea.
Can I share something with that? This is Stephanie Bachrami. I'm with the town of Bloomfield, and yes, we definitely want to get started on this.
Yay.
So you can take a look at, for example, procurement of sustainable products. You can get points for that. If you go into towns, so this would fall under that category. If you take a look at Sustainable CT and just take a look at all the different actions, there is going to be something in there for school buses, for clean transportation. It might be under thriving communities.
Yeah.
Sure, but I definitely plan on using this for a number of different actions, actually. The one I want to push for is when you look at the numbers of people who are really succumbing to this virus, who are actually dying from it, not just people getting it. They are people who live in communities with high pollution levels. And the whole of Connecticut struggles with high pollution just from its geography. We're downwind of a lot of industries, but we also have very poor culture as far as like just leaving our engines running while we're texting on the phone for 10 minutes. So we do have to change things at the cultural level. But one thing we can push for maybe is starting some of these electric school buses in the poorer communities. We're probably more likely to get the grants for that.
Yeah.
In those communities. I know in Bloomfield we have 2 Bloomfields. We have one that's a little bit more affluent, let's just say, and then one that's sort of the north end of Hartford, which probably is where I think we should start as a community. Is let's see if we can get electric school buses that serve that part of Bloomfield.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's just my 2 pennies.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And yeah, the air quality was at a deep meeting this morning, and there's another presentation on air quality, and it's in the meeting today. They were focused actually on Southwestern Connecticut and the corridor. All the towns along the corridor there. Terrible air. I mean, the whole state does, but you're right. There's certain pockets that are
more urban,
hard hit.
Yeah, you'll see if you follow over the summertime, especially, you can see the air quality, or air now, I think it is. And every year we get more and more days where the air, I mean, you feel it catching in the back of your throat. You know when it's a bad air day.
Yeah, there was 24 last year, 24 bad days. Yeah, which is actually down from other years. It's down, but it's still too many. It's still too many.
But I think it's a good point. There's a scientific paper that just came out that did show a correlation with COVID severity and air pollution. A great argument to make for electric buses, in addition to the fact that California has labeled diesel fuel a carcinogen. So the health part is a good argument.
Absolutely, because we all know that the bad air quality exacerbates asthma, or can even create and start lung issues. And in this environment, none of us needs compromised lungs. And that's something I have been thinking a lot about, how this does, it is very, in season, these kinds of projects, because we really do have to be careful, especially now, of the air in our lungs.
Can I ask 2 questions? The first of all, well, I think they're both to do with procurement. Number one, do you think it would be beneficial if we partnered with other towns nearby? I actually put this in a chat question, but I guess it works better this way. So for example, if we partnered up with another town, when it came to trying to get contracts with bus companies who were willing to do some electric school, would it help, or no, not really? I'm not really sure how that works at a procurement level.
Yeah. I mean, I think it does. I mean, I think the more of us in as many towns as possible that kind of start focusing on electric school buses, the word's going to get out that this is just where Connecticut wants to go. And it's going to build a lot of momentum. So again, I think the more we can collaborate, the more we can work together, and the more we can just start these projects, get our teams, we'll let the service providers know. I mean, we're planning on having some sort of training with the service providers. The Clean Cities is working to have some sort of training with service providers and the OEMs to kind of share some ideas and talk about, really what are the maintenance costs and what is the life expectancy of these electric school buses, and how can the service providers pass those costs on to the towns, and let the service providers know this is what people want. They want electric school buses. And I think if we sort of come at it like that, I think it's just going to have a cumulative effect. So I think this is a great start, and I can't thank you all enough for spending some time together today to talk about electric school buses. And for everybody who raised their hands, thank you, Cyril. For everyone for raising their hands and wanting to commit to this. And I'm so excited to speak with you all next week and to send out some next steps to see what you can do and how we can start working on all these things together.
Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email them to myself or to Kelsey, and this is our #1 priority. So we're excited to hear from you, and anything we can do to help you, we are here to help. So we will send out information and a meeting invitation for next week, and be well. Thank you.
Thanks, Daphne.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.